very exciting developments at the Wildlife Park in recent weeks, all aimed at making the park more accessible to everyone, especially when it comes to one of the favourite non-animal attractions up there. Eddie Ryan is from the Manx Steam and Model Engineering Club, which runs the miniature railway. Eddie, just tell us a little bit about the club, first of all. How long's this been going?
The club's actually, it was thought the origins of the club was in the late 1940s. And they all met apparently in the old co-op building in Douglas. And then what happened then, apparently there was a record of an inaugural meeting in 1952 called the Douglas Society of Model Engineers. And this is, there was an advert or an article in the Isle of Man newspapers about this. But the club we know today was started by a gentleman by the name of George Chaplin, and they held several meetings apparently in the Queen's Hotel at Laxey. Now, what happened in the early days was people built model steam locomotives, and of course they had nowhere to actually run them. And I believe that they went around with a portable track at first to the Manx show and all sorts of things that went on during the year. And I think they approached the Wildlife Park and said, would they like for them to build a miniature railway there? And that's what they actually did. But what they actually did was build a railway over a bog, which was quite interesting, I think, in terms of engineering and the way that they actually built it. And it's been extended a few times as well since.
Before we talk more about that railway and the developments that have been made, what was it that made you want to be part of this club?
I knew I was coming up for retirement, and I had sort of a career working with heavy commercial vehicles and engineering, and I decided that I would like to take it as a hobby, is model engineering. And the things you should do is sort of join a club, maybe go to college and learn new skills, and read the magazines. And I guess that's what I did, and I joined the club, and it's been an inspiration to me since.
And you know, these model railways, they are quite incredible. And I know there are some people over here who've got them in their gardens. And I understand that somebody, I think it's up north, opens it up at the weekends.
Yes, that's right. Actually, in fact, that's our chairman, Ian Beach. Yes, he has a little miniature railway up at Point of Ayre. And he runs that, and it's donations to a charity.
So we've got this Orchid Line then at the Wildlife Park. Where did the idea to have a disabled carriage come from?
Well, both my wife and I, up until I retired, worked with children with special needs, and we had a discussion. Now, I don't know whether it was lunch or I don't know whether it was dinner, but it was one of them two. And we decided that it would be a good idea if we could make a carriage accessible for wheelchairs. And by chance, we had a group of young people come from the special needs unit at St Ninians, and one young lady was in a wheelchair, but at that time she was quite small, so we was able to lift her on a carriage, and the carer to sort of cuddle her really too. And her face was just a picture. As she went round on that train, you know, her face just absolutely beamed. It was absolutely fantastic, and I thought, yeah, we got to do this.
So how long has it taken then? Because I'm imagining there's an awful lot of planning that's been needed before you even started the actual physical process.
Yeah, it took about probably 12 months to 18 months really to actually get it into fruition. There was lots of issues. Why can't we buy one? Because there are several companies that actually make them. We felt that the carriage that they designed wasn't suitable for our needs. And then the other argument came in, we're a model engineering club, we can build this. And then there was a sort of funding issue as well, but we approached Peel Charity Shop, and they put some money into it, as well as AFD at Ramsey, and they put some money into it as well. And then really it was quite a long time in terms of research and development. We made the bogies, which is like carries the wheels, and at one stage we sort of fixed a piece of plywood and took it around the track to see how stable it was with a wheelchair on. And then eventually, because stability is the real issue for it, so then we actually bought what they call a big piece of Durbar plate, which is 3/8 plate on the bottom for the wheelchair to actually sit on. So we went around the carriage on that to make sure that worked. And then one of the issues for us was what do we do if somebody comes along and says they want to use the wheelchair carriage? Does that mean we've got to get it out and put it into the train? So cleverly, we come up with an idea whereby it's a normal carriage and you just lift out the centre section and it becomes a wheelchair carriage. So the carriage is actually in the train all of the time.
I imagine with all the work that you've been doing for so long, I imagine the build-up to, I think it was the 5th of August, you had your inauguration of
That's
the
right,
carriage.
yeah.
What was it like after all that long build-up to finally get to see the carriage in action?
It was absolutely fantastic. And there was 2 young people that were in a wheelchair with a disability. And again, they went around and it was just absolutely amazing just to see their faces. And for me, it was just like, yeah.
Yeah, clearly really emotional, and what a fantastic thing to do. How often is the line open and available to people?
During the summer holidays, when the children are off on holiday, it's open on Thursday afternoons, which has become our busiest time really, and then Sundays throughout the year from Easter through to November.
In terms of, I mean, do you call it driving the train? Is
Yep.
that the right term? I just don't want to get my terminology wrong here. But in terms of driving it, does it make any physical difference to pulling it? Does it anything alter with that?
No, not really. No, it's a little bit heavier, but you don't really notice it. So yeah.
So you had that official launch on the 5th of August, and it was the Health Minister who opened it.
Yeah.
Dave Wilson, it's really interesting, isn't it? Just getting people more aware about the needs of disabled people and actually just making sure that the same opportunities are available to them.
Absolutely, that's what it's about, really. I mean, that's a wonderful thing. I can just imagine, and just sitting next to you, I can see how emotional you are about that, and how wonderful that must have been just to see the look on somebody's face. But yeah, it is. It's just about fairness, isn't it? We all want to achieve things in life. Sometimes we have to take different routes to get there, but we all want to achieve. We all want to be part of the world and part of society, and why can't we be?
And I'm sure, Eddie, many people listening would love to tinker around with model engines and railways and things like that. Is the club quite open to welcoming new members?
Just turn up. I mean, a lot of people think that it's just about the railway. It's not about the railway. We are a model engineering club, and it's about getting people inspired to actually make things, with their hands, use a lathe, use a milling machine. And we've got a lathe, we've got a milling machine, we've got all the tooling there that's needed for people just to come along and have a go. And one of the things that, I don't know if I'm right in saying this, but what I would like to do, because now we're on Women Today, is that recently we had a barbecue for members, and it was the wives that came along, and they were driving the locomotives, and it was absolutely fantastic just to see their experience of doing it. But it's more than that. And what I would like to do, and I haven't sort of checked this out with anybody, is I would like to have a ladies' day at the park, where people can come along, experience driving the locomotives, but also possibly making something on the lathes, on the milling machine, and using the tooling.
That sounds so exciting. I like something that I've never done. Sign me up, Eddie. I'm there.